Tonight on News 3 New Mexico, the Nashville man who saved lives at Waffle House speaks out.
And find out when the weather will turn your rain boots into sandals in my full weather forecast.
And find out how a restaurant worker put an end to a nationwide hunt for a 56-year-old killer. All this and more starts right now.
This is News 3 New Mexico, your local source for news, sports, and first weather.
Good evening and welcome to News 3 New Mexico. I'm Brandon Warren.
And I'm Jordan Honeycutt. Authorities say 2 people are hospitalized after a semi-truck collided with a van in East Clovis. Clovis police say the van was struck on its passenger side by the big rig while trying to turn into a gas station Monday afternoon. They say the van was thrown into a ditch and a trailer it was pulling flipped over. Police say a man and woman who were in the van were flown to a hospital in Lubbock, Texas for treatment of undisclosed injuries. Their names, ages, and hometowns weren't immediately available. Police say the driver of the semi-truck escaped injury.
A recent decline in enrollment at New Mexico public colleges outpaced nearly every state in the nation. An association of state higher education agencies says enrollment dropped by nearly 5% at New Mexico public colleges for the school year that ended in June 2017. Statistics compiled by State Higher Education Officers Association show that the only greater decline in full-time student enrollment was in South Dakota public colleges. New Mexico's nonpartisan Legislative Finance Committee highlighted the enrollment decline in a Tuesday report. New Mexico's 24 public colleges and universities offer some of the lowest average tuition rates in the country. More than 10% of the state's annual fund goes towards higher education, and state lottery proceeds offset some in-state tuition. A previously undiscovered copy of a historical treaty signed by Navajo leaders and the U.S. government that allowed the tribe to return to its homeland in 1868 will go on display later this year. Navajo Vice President Jonathan Nez says relatives of a peace commissioner involved in the process 150 years ago found the document in a trunk in the family attic. It was still bound with the original ribbon. Pages of this still pristine document will be on display at the Bosque Redondo Memorial in eastern New Mexico, where the U.S. military imprisoned thousands of Navajos after forcing them to leave their homeland. The Navajo Nation is commemorating the 150th anniversary of the signing of the treaty with numerous events, including a run that will span more than 400 miles. The tribe also launched a website focused on the treaty and the commemoration.
New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez's administration has announced plans to allow students to count computer science classes towards graduation requirements after the Republican governor vetoed legislation last year that would have accomplished a similar goal. The state public education department's announcement came Tuesday, a day before a legal fight on that veto and 9 others goes before the state Supreme Court. The state legislature with bipartisan support approved a bill last year that would have allowed students to substitute a math or science class for a computer science course. Martinez vetoed it, triggering legislative leaders to file a lawsuit. State education officials say the previous legislation could have allowed computer science classes to count towards student requirements without regard for rigor or content.
So Jordan, this week we saw a little bit of everything as far as weather goes. It's been cold, it's been warm, it's been rainy.
You know, and about the only constant it seems is the wind blowing outside. But let's hand it over to Thalia and she'll give us a little preview of what's to come.
Sounds good.
So unfortunately for you guys, the wind will still be sticking around for our weather. But if you're a fan of the milder temperatures, those will also stick around. We will start to get back into the 80s though heading into the weekend. I'll have a closer look at all of that in my full weather forecast. Back to you guys at the desk.
A Texas-based public policy group is pushing to expand the use of risk assessment tools to help judges determine the fate of defendants pending trial. The Laura and John Arnold Foundation announced Wednesday that it's seeking proposals as part of a project to determine the effectiveness of its assessment, which relies on several factors. The push comes as New Mexico and other states grapple with bail reform. Foundation officials say there's growing demand for risk assessment and more research will help in understanding the limitations of such tools. New Mexico voters in 2016 overwhelmingly supported a constitutional amendment aimed at keeping dangerous defendants in custody pending trial, while allowing for the release of nonviolent suspects who can't afford bail. Rules related to the change have spurred much debate over the past year among judges, prosecutors, and others.
An assistant basketball coach at a New Mexico high school has been arrested on charges that he engaged in sexual acts with 2 teenage students. New Mexico State Police say 29-year-old Dominic Baca was arrested Tuesday in Pecos and charged with multiple counts of criminal sexual penetration and sexual contact of a minor by school personnel. According to charging documents, the Pecos High School assistant coach had sexual encounters with a 14-year-old girl in February 2017 and a 17-year-old girl from February to March of this year. Court records don't list an attorney for Baca who could comment on the allegations. School Superintendent Fred Trujillo says Baca was placed on administrative leave more than 2 weeks ago. Baca has been a coach at the school since 2015. Las Cruces police say a teen is dead after being shot and that investigators believe the youth was shot while a passenger in a car involved in a pursuit and exchange of gunfire between occupants of two vehicles. Police Department spokesman Dan Trujillo says 17-year-old Jovan Solomon died at a hospital in El Paso, Texas after being shot Monday evening. Trujillo says the youth had at least 2 gunshot wounds to his neck and upper chest. The spokesman says investigators believe Solomon may have been a passenger in a white Acura Integra that was located Monday evening and that the Acura and a dark-colored sedan were engaged in a pursuit on Athenian Way when shots were fired.
The staff for New Mexico Democratic congressional candidate Deborah Haaland has joined an upstart national labor union for election campaign workers. The Campaign Workers Guild announced Monday it had secured a union contract with Haaland's campaign that outlines minimum pay, working conditions, and benefits for employees. The campaign currently employs 4 people with an additional employee on leave for graduate studies. Launched in February, the Campaign Workers Guild is making inroads into the often high-pressure work environments of election campaigning. It represents workers in 13 political campaigns, including 9 congressional campaigns from Pennsylvania to California. Haaland says she embraced the idea of unionizing when approached by staff members and that it fits with her support for a higher federal minimum wage and paid family leave guarantees. Stay tuned for your weather with Thalia Pantoja after the break.
But first, here's a look at today's financial markets.
Welcome back to News New Mexico. Let's go ahead and take a look at this weather map. As you can see, there's a lot of precipitation from Texas into Middle America, and it's just transferring all the way into the Northeast as well. So there's not a lot of precipitation on the western side or in the Pacific Northwest like we are used to seeing. Let's start jumping ahead to see if we can get to New Mexico. As you can see, there's not a lot of precipitation right now in the state, but that is going to start to change and progress over the week, as we'll see whenever we get into our current conditions. Our current wind speeds are looking a little different. They're not too bad at all. So it's 3 miles per hour right now in Portales, which is relatively mild compared to what we're used to. 8 for Ruidoso, 13 for Fort Sumner, 6 for Tucumcari and Friona, 3 for Milshu, and 8 for Lovington and Hobbs. So these wind speeds aren't too bad at all, especially not for spring. Let's take a look at this map and just see how beautiful the colors are right now and just prominently displayed at all the different temperatures that New Mexico's at right now. So Silver City's at 78, 77 for Truth or Consequences, and Las Cruces, which is a lot milder than they're used to for this time of year. 67 for Santa Fe, 66 for Socorro, nice and mild, 59 for Ruidoso, 66 for Roswell. Let's take a look more. So Carlsbad is into the 60s as well. But let's take a look at our regional temps. As you can see, we're kind of the mildest spot to be in New Mexico right now. So 64 for Portales, 64 for Fort Sumner, 66 for Friona, and 64 for Milshu, and 66 for Lovington and Hobbs. So let's take a look at the lows. We're not going to jump down too bad because, again, our daytime temperatures weren't the highest today. So 49 for Socorro, 52 for Truth or Consequences, 54 for Las Cruces, 48 for Albuquerque, and 41 for Grants. Our regional lows are going to get pretty cold today. So 45 for Roswell, 36 for Ruidoso rather, 37 for Portales, 37 for Fort Sumner, 36 for Tucumcari, and 43 for Lovington and Hobbs, and it looks like Carlsbad might be the warmest spot tonight at 48. So let's take a look at our highs. Tomorrow, these highs are going to get a little bit higher than what they were today, so we're going to see some heat definitely come into the state. 84 for Socorro, 85 for Truth or Consequences, 86 for Las Cruces, 80 for Albuquerque, and 74 for our state capital. Our regional temperatures are also going to come back up, so 70 for Portales, and it looks like 70 is definitely the trend for the eastern plains. If we go to southeast New Mexico, though, it looks like the 80s are where it's at. So 84 for Roswell, 88 for Carlsbad, so they're going to be the high tomorrow. Definitely the hot spot in New Mexico. 74 for Ruidoso, and 84 for Lovington and Hobbs. Let's jump ahead and look at Portales' current conditions. As you can see, we are going to have a chance for precipitation tomorrow and into the weekend into Sunday. By Saturday, it'll be cloudy and really warm, so keep in mind for that. So that'll be a really good thing to see. Let's go ahead and jump ahead to this week's Pet of the Week. So this little guy is an American Staffordshire Terrier mixed breed, and if you'd like to get him a forever home, go ahead and contact the High Plains Humane Society. That's all we have for you. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to be back for more news after the break.
A 42-year-old case may finally be coming to an end. A former California police officer is the believed Golden State Killer. 72-year-old Joseph James DeAngelo was arrested today. He is also known as the East Area Rapist. DeAngelo is believed to have killed 12 people, raped 45, and burglarized up to 120 homes between 1976 to 1986. DNA connected DeAngelo to these incidents. Here is what one of the victims' family members had to say.
To the entire reservoir of victims out there, my sadness is with you. For the 51 ladies who were brutally raped in this crime scene, sleep better tonight. He isn't coming through the window. He's now in jail, and he's history.
Once DNA tests were available to investigators, they were able to confirm the same man committed 3 of the attacks that had previously been blamed on the so-called East Area Rapist. Families are now able to have closure.
College journalists are speaking up for themselves in a campaign to combat some of the same forces battering newspapers across the country. As ad revenue plummets, college editors have suffered in relative silence. Some have taken to crowdsourcing sites, while others have relied on alumni donations to help keep papers afloat. Still, students have been forced to make decisions to downsize operations, shutter offices, or re-affiliate with universities. A Safe Student Newsrooms movement has emerged as concerns mount about freedom of the press on college campuses. Through social media campaigns, awareness events, and editorials, more than 100 college newsrooms across the U.S. are using their platforms Wednesday to speak to the issues student papers confront today. They are seeking to show why it's important they remain viable and independent.
A Nashville, Tennessee man is being honored after risking his life to save people after a gunman entered the Waffle House restaurant Sunday morning. Chris Conti reports.
Divisiveness is often the defining characteristic of a place like this.
How you doing?
I love you. I'm so proud of you.
James Shaw, though, is not privy to party politics. He is a father, a son, a hero. And today, on the floor of the Tennessee State House, he was rightfully honored as one. To their feet, lawmakers rose.
You were confronted with the most unspeakable evil imaginable.
Bipartisan support for the man who saved nearly 24 lives by grabbing the barrel of a loaded gun inside the Antioch Waffle House.
I never thought I would be in a room with all the eyes on me.
James Shaw did not intend to become a hero on Sunday morning. He still wishes he could have done more.
All I can say is this was the true test of a man. I do once again apologize to the people that lost loved ones.
The very same can be said for his best friend, B.J. McMurray, who pushed people into a restroom and locked the door.
We did it to try to save ourselves. And I'm just glad that there are more people on the earth today than there may have not been the other day. So thank you.
Both men know when their well-deserved fame fades, what happened Sunday morning will not. But for this day and this moment, they brought unity and humility to a place that could often use it.
And me saving lives, I saved other lives.
The search for a murder suspect has finally ended. 56-year-old Lois Reese of Minnesota is accused of killing her husband before traveling to Florida to kill a woman and steal her identity.
A restaurant worker in Texas is being hailed as a hero for calling authorities when he spotted her Thursday. Nicole Valdez reports.
You never know what people got in their minds.
George Higginbottom has called Dirty Al's his second home for 13 years and knows almost everyone who walks through the door by name. Thursday night, his eyes drifted towards a new face, one he recognized for a different reason.
He asked her how many people? And she said, no, I'm just looking at the menu. You know, and I'm looking at it and I go, I know this is the lady.
From up above, surveillance cameras captured Higginbottom's suspicion. The woman who walked in was wanted for murder.
She was enjoying herself. She always had a smile on her face, like it's just unreal for a person that's supposed to be on the run. She wasn't acting like that.
He says Lois Reese only spent a few minutes inside, then walked right back out and drove off. But it only took seconds for George to get on the phone with federal agents.
You need to get over here and check it out.
Not 30 minutes later, U.S. Marshals had Reese in cuffs just across the road at the Sea Ranch restaurant.
When I heard that she got caught here, I was like, that's crazy.
Customers like Tim Jimenez says the news encouraged him to visit and meet the man who helped put an end to a violent streak.
And we're just like, wow, it's a real life hero.
But Higginbottom says the most rewarding moment came well after the arrest.
She thanked me. She thanked me.
A call from murder victim Pamela Hutchinson's cousin, Ellen Watts.
She told me she has closure. She wants to send me a thank you note. A card, you know, I can't wait till I get it.
Reese is charged with second-degree murder with a firearm, grand theft of a motor vehicle, criminal use of personal identification, and another count of grand theft.
Coming up after the break, we'll have some sports with Brooklyn Beal.
Welcome back to News 3 New Mexico. I'm Brooklyn Beal here with all of your sports news, so let's jump right into it. The Greyhound baseball team had a series last weekend down in San Angelo versus Angelo State. The first game of the series unfortunately didn't go the Hounds' way, but they were able to turn it around and win both games in Saturday's doubleheader. The first game was tied at 4 in the end of the 4th inning, but the Hounds scored another 5 runs in the final 3 innings to take the first game to 9 runs to 5. In the second game, the Hounds took a commanding 5-1 lead into the 5th inning and just continued to pile on and win by a score of 11-4. The Hounds will have this weekend off and then travel up to Dallas next week on Tuesday to take on Dallas Christian College. You can keep up with scores and updates for all those games at GoEasternAthletics.com. ENMU softball traveled just down the road to Lubbock Christian, where they hit their 50th homer mark for the second time in program history. We have all heard about the powerhouse Erica Burke, who has had 15 home runs this season, but there are 3 other players who have made a huge contribution to the record-breaking season. Jennifer McElroy has had 7 home runs, Samantha Brockman has had 4 home runs, Alina Garcia and Ashley Lopez have both had 7 home runs on this season. Between these 4 athletes, they're responsible for 40 of the 50 total home runs for the season. The Greyhound softball team heads back on the road to West Texas A&M, and West Texas is currently second in the Lone Star Conference right behind Angelo State. The Greyhounds will take on the Buffs Friday and Saturday. Friday's game will be at 5 p.m., and there's a doubleheader on Saturday that starts at 12 p.m. This is the final series the Greyhounds will play before the Lone Star Conference tournament play begins. Remember, you can keep up with the scores for baseball and softball on GoEasternAthletics.com. Well, some of the first-round series for the NBA playoffs are coming to a close, and we now have our first official matchup set for the second round. The defending champion Golden State Warriors, led by Kevin Durant with 25 points and Klay Thompson with 24 points. They held off a late charge and beat the San Antonio Spurs with a final score of 99-91 in Game 5. They've won that series 4-1. The Warriors will now face the New Orleans Pelicans in the Western Conference semifinals. The Pelicans will be coming off of a sweep of the Trailblazers in the first round. In Game 4 of that series, they were led by Anthony Davis, who had a franchise record for points in a playoff game with 47, and Drew Holiday, who had 41 points. They went on to win by a score of 131-123. Game 1 of their series will be set to begin on Saturday, with the time still to be determined. Well, the NFL draft is set to begin tomorrow in Dallas, and nearly 24 of the top prospects for the NFL draft gathered in Texas one day before many of them find out where they're headed to start their pro careers. With Dez Bryant gone, the Dallas Cowboys have to decide if they will use their top pick on a receiver for the first time since taking him 8 years ago. Dallas has the 19th pick in the first round Thursday night. For those of you that want to watch, it will begin tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Well, that does all the sports news I have for you today, but stay tuned because the News 3 New Mexico will be right back after the break.
Well, guys, this is our last Wednesday show of the semester. Make sure you stay tuned throughout the rest of the week.
And thank you for watching us.